Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, another third period lead, another loss, and the road trip comes home winless. They go 0-5 after a 6-4 loss to the Colorado Avalanche.
And the Senators are hoping to gift the fans at the CTC with a win over the Pittsburgh Penguins before the holiday break.
We'll have a full game day preview of that and reaction to Bruce Garriock's report that Matthew Joseph is going to miss weeks. We'll get into all that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 944 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. You can follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Today is Friday, December 22nd in Pilsy. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, they do. The Senators go 1 for 5 on the PK. They blow another third period lead. Like, where do you go from here?
I don't know, Ross. This is now a 6-game losing streak with a coaching change in between here. Like, this team is digging themselves a hole so deep they're not going to be able to even see the sky from down deep below here, Ross. Like, I don't know. I really thought this road trip, this was going to spark some change. You get away from home. You're going to some sweet places. Hopefully you get some bonding with the guys on the road. It ends up turning into an ultimate disaster. And now they have one opportunity to try to gain some sort of momentum, any ounce of confidence before heading into the Christmas break. But Ross, it's up against a team that has scorned them for almost their entire existence as a franchise, the Pittsburgh Penguins.
But this road trip could have gone differently. Going into the road trip, the team was 9-0 when leading after 2 periods. They went 0-3 in that situation on this trip, losing like in inexplicable fashion. It's a different thing every night. And last night against Colorado, it was the PK and then their inability to answer on the power play. It really felt like they left clutch moments on the table and just did not. I mean, they threw everything but the kitchen sink at Georgiev. They had 40-some shots on goal. But I mentioned in the postcast last night, you can go get all of our kind of immediate thoughts on the game in the postcast. They're 0-4 this year when they have more than 40 shots because it's quantity over quality at that point. They're just saying, let's get everything at the net. And I'm not saying that's the worst idea, but then go get a rebound, go put something in. You can't have that stat just sitting in my lap here to say, because it's brutal right now. Like, everything that can go wrong, it seems like it does.
Yeah, and Ross, the thing with these games is hockey is such, especially when you're the road team, it's such a game of momentum. And the Ottawa Senators were shot down by momentum multiple times in this goal. There's multiple ones in this game. Sorry, there's multiple goals we can get into. But for me, Ross, it was that goal that makes it 4-3. They're up 4-2, dying seconds of the second period, 16 seconds left. Rantanen gets a power play goal, and now it's 4-3, and the Colorado Avalanche go into this intermission at home with some life, and they ultimately take it away from there as they score 3 unanswered goals. Well, that 4 unanswered goals if you count that one as well. So this is just an opportunity that the Ottawa Senators have, and they let it all slip away.
They let it all slip away, and they battled back. They got speed bagged in the first period. The Colorado Avalanche had 23 shot attempts in the first period, and they had 16 scoring chances. It was
2-2 at the end of the period as well.
You knew they were going to come out hard. They lost to Chicago their last game. Their team had some internal, not bickering, but they called each other out. And that's what a team with high standards does when they're not met. And unfortunately, Ottawa got the brunt of that. But to get out of that period tied 2-2 had to feel like a victory. And then Ottawa poured it on in the second period. They really pushed the pace, and they got 11 scoring chances and only gave up 9, which, 9, you probably want that a little less, but at least they won the battle. And then to have a lead going into the third period, albeit 1 goal instead of 2, as you pointed out, they had their chances. And those 3 straight power plays, Pilsy, right after they gave up the game go-ahead goal. And we talked about it more and more on the postcast, but it'd be remiss not to mention the offside call or lack thereof. It ends up costing a 2-goal swing. I wouldn't have challenged that. I would have said, guys, don't worry about I guess it is technically a controllable if you want to challenge, but I would have said, look, maybe if that puts you down a goal, challenge, but you're tied, you're still in a game. Even if you just get it to overtime, get a point for the first time in a long time. And they didn't. And to me, that was a mistake. Sure, if you get it, you're still leading. Okay. But then they score on the ensuing power play. And at that point, that's such a momentum killer. Such a momentum killer.
Big time. And especially Ross, part of this decision making needs to look at, okay, let's say we do get this wrong. You're now giving one of the best power plays in the league that's already dominated you so far, and you have one of the worst penalty kills in the league. So to take that gamble when you're not 100% sure, there's a lot of risk involved, and they end up paying the price.
And the Ottawa Senators took a few bad penalties in this game. Drake Batherson's holding penalty in the third period was a bad penalty to take. And I thought Drake Batherson, for the most part, was one of the better Ottawa Senators on the ice. Had a goal, had an assist. He was being physical. That clip was Jacques Martin talking to him on the bench. I love that, but that wasn't a great penalty. And Jacques talked about that at the end of the game. They took bad penalties in this game, and it ended up costing them because they scored enough. 4 goals should win you most games. Look, I get it. Colorado's great. And we do have to give stick taps. Nathan MacKinnon scored 4 goals in this game and had an assist. Yeah. Mikko Rantanen had 2 goals in this game. This was the Nathan MacKinnon show. He had 9 shots on goal. He only played 22 minutes. That's what Timmy plays all the time. But for what he did in that time, super impressive. There's nothing you can take away from that. They got beat up by a superstar tonight. Cale Makar comes back, missing the last 3 games, has 5 shots on goal, has 2 assists in the game as well. You have to give credit where it's due, sure. But I think the Senators and their fans, us included, we're just sick and tired of reasons. Whether it's an excuse or a reason, at the end of the day, it's the Jerry Maguire show me the money, except for swap out money with results. People just want to see a winning team around here, and they haven't won in a long time. And it's getting compounded, and it's like what we've talked about with the fans. They're carrying the burden of 7 years. Yeah. Well, these players are carrying the burden of this last stretch here, and you can tell there is zero confidence among the group.
Well, and Ross, I'm looking at their December schedule here, and the issue is, look, all teams, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to have nights where leads slip away from you, where you're not able to fully push back and get that win. But the issue is the Ottawa Senators have so many instances where they can't even get it past regulation to at least get that loser point. You look at the game up against Toronto, they lose 4-3. Game up against Dallas, they lose 5-4. The game up against Arizona, you lose 4-3. And then last night's game up against Colorado, sure, it's a 6-4 loss, but one of those is an empty netter, and you get gifted 3 power play opportunities at the end of the game, and you can't make that push to at least tie it. So that's where this team, it's hard to build confidence when you're getting so close in some instances, like I mentioned, and getting rewarded with nothing.
And the empty net goal's a bit of a mirage, right? So I'm not even counting that, because that counts as a 2-goal game. This year, the Senators in 1-goal games, take a guess. They've played 5 games. How many wins?
Oh, none.
None. They're 0-5.
Yeah, none.
They're 0-5. They have not won a game by 1 goal. That is
except in the Global
No,
Series games.
in regulation. In
Yes.
regulation, this counts. That is so bad. Like, I don't know. Like, Jacques Martin's got his work cut out for him, but he seems prepared. He's talking to guys on the bench. I do have faith in what Jacques Martin is preaching. And, like, for people, and some of it, I do feel like it's a bit of a joke where they're like, oh, come on, Jacques hasn't done anything. Like, he hasn't even had a home practice yet. Yeah. I think that it's going to take at least 2 weeks until we can really see, because in the first period, and maybe this was a reason why they were getting speed bagged as much as they were, and give Colorado credit. I keep going back to that. They're a championship quality team, missing guys. And guess what? No excuses. There were no excuses about guys out of the lineup. It's who they have that's in the lineup that matters. But what I was getting at here is that for the Ottawa Senators, it's too much thinking right now. And that'll come where it becomes second nature, but you could tell, and that's credit to the players that they're trying to implement what Jacques' teaching. But it's going to take a while, unfortunately. No new coach bump for Ottawa. They lose 6-4 to the Colorado Avalanche. We'll get a little bit further into this game. We've got an injury update on Mathieu Joseph, and Tyler Boucher made his professional hockey debut tonight for the Belleville Senators. And oh yeah, it's one of those nights where the Sens lose. You're like, oh, could I get some dopamine from the Belleville Sens? No, 5-1 loss. They just got run over. And guess who scored in Belleville tonight? Yeah, Colin White did. Yeah, Colin White. Colin White had a goal and an assist for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. And Senators draft pick, guest of this show, Jonathan Gruden, had the opening goal in that game as well. We'll tell you more from that game, and we'll weekend preview Erik Karlsson with Pittsburgh colors on, coming to Ottawa. I know it's enough to make your head spin. That's coming up next. You're listening to Locked On Senators. It's your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Sleeper. Guys, if you want to win 100 times your money, play daily fantasy hockey on the Sleeper app, available for our friends down in the States. As the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network, Sleeper is our top choice for daily fantasy sports, especially when you're talking about daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you can win 100 times, no, that's not a typo, 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. What I love about the Sleeper app is they've got a great group chat function where you can connect with all your buddies, let them know you're going to have a big week, talk some smack, and what I love is entries can be made in under a minute. So time is money. You can get those picks in real quick. With studs like Brady Tkachuk, Claude Giroux, Jake Sanderson, and Drake Batherson, there's so many players you can pick for stats like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more. You heard me, Sens fans. 100 times payout on Sleeper. So start paying attention and get your picks right so you could win big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for detail. Only available for friends in the States for now.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Farm to Fork. FarmToForkDelivery.ca. It's a premium meat and seafood company, and it's local too. It's an Ottawa man. Derek's such a beauty, and he's an Ottawa Senators fan just like you. And Derek has one goal, and that's to make sure that everyone's eating the most quality meats going. So Derek got this company, and he said, hey, let's deliver to all of Ontario, all of Quebec, and up in Nunavut, so you can get your hands on Farm to Fork. So what is a Farm to Fork meat? What makes it different? Well, first and foremost, absolutely delicious. See their 5.0 average review stars on Google. They're also all natural products, antibiotic and hormone free. They're also ethically raised. So the meats are flash frozen right at the butcher's table, right after they're hand cut, and that makes for much fresher meats than at the grocery stores. Then they're individually vacuum sealed, so they take in all that juice and make sure that you can only take out what you need at the time that you need it. They also have free and convenient delivery at farmtoforkdelivery.ca. And because you're a listener of Locked On Senators, you can go get an extra 10% off your order with the LOSP10 promo code. That's LOSP10 for 10% off your first order at farmtoforkdelivery.ca. Go taste the Farm to Fork difference. You will never go back to grocery. intermission. Bruce Garriock reporting that Matthew Joseph will be out for as long as 3 more weeks. That means he's going to be returning about the same time as Shane Pinto. That's how long we're looking at here, about mid-January, that we won't see Matthew Joseph. And he's had such a solid year so far. Obviously, there was the shenanigans going on the other night, but you look at 19 points in 25 games and a plus 12. They're going to miss him, no doubt.
Yeah, it's just so disappointing, Ross. Like, that's one of the bright spots of this season so far is Matthew Joseph has found his game again, and not only found his game, but he's elevated his game, and he's been one of the better players on this team consistently. No matter what line they shove him on, he's been a good player. So that certainly is tough news, Ross. But if I could spin zone it in any way, that's going to give more opportunity for a guy like Angus Crookshank to hopefully show what he can do, as he's looked nice in the few games he's had so far. So I don't know, trying to put some sort of positivity on it, Ross, but not going to lie, that one hurts, as Matthew Joseph's speed is really going to be missed in this lineup.
It really will. And his ability to finish, 18 of his 19 points came at 5-on-5 this year as well. So he's really been contributing. And frankly, whatever line he was on was the line that always was able to get going right off the hop, no matter what. So they're going to miss Matthew Joseph. Now, what did you make of the other point Bruce Garriock got across, that Steve Staios has been taking calls on Dominik Kubalik?
I mean, I would hope so. I think it's been pretty clear to everyone watching this team that, look, I don't want to pile on the guy Kubalik, but it just seemed like he was brought in as a roster piece as part of that deal, maybe to move some money as well. And, you know, hopefully he can strike some gold on the bottom six and help out some scoring in the bottom six, which the Sens clearly lacked last season. But I just don't see a role for him now that Joseph is up to his standard. And for a third line winger, the Senators have so many guys that can score goals up front on the top six. I think they need to prioritize finding a different style of player for that third line. And I don't think Dominik Kubalik has a future here, especially Ross. We heard rumors in the offseason that he was hoping to get a long-term deal after this year. Not going to be in Ottawa.
No, it won't be. And look, you say the Ottawa Senators have guys who can score in their top six. On paper, they do. But over this 6-game losing streak, Tim Stützle has 0 goals and Brady Tkachuk has 1. And it was a garbage time goal against the Vegas Golden Knights. Brady Tkachuk very hard on himself after last night's game to Colorado, saying that he has never felt so sad and disappointed and upset. And look, Saturday, I think we're going to learn a lot about this Senators team before they disperse for 3 days for their Christmas break. And then they come back and play the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, they need this Saturday game against Pittsburgh like you wouldn't believe. And we're going to have a full game day preview. Before we get to that, though, quick note on Belleville. They lose 5-1 tonight. Like, Belleville's a mess. Like, let's just call it what it is. Belleville's a mess. They've got, I think, good pieces, like a lot of guys who I'm excited to see what they can do as professional hockey players. Tyler Clevin, Zach Ostapchuk, and add Tyler Boucher into the mix on that as well. And not the greatest debut. Obviously, they don't have time on ice stats. He took a 4-minute double minor for high sticking in the third period. They end up scoring on the power play, but at that point, I mean, it's already 4-1. It's already pretty much over. But an unfortunate note there on the stat line. But all in all, like I said this morning, Pillsy, it was just great to see Tyler Boucher playing hockey again after such a long time without it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We mentioned it, Ross. It's going to be baby steps for Tyler here, as he's barely played any hockey last year, and even beyond that, it's going to take a while for him to be able to adjust and get into the, especially going from junior to the pros. So give it time, but yeah, it has been difficult in Belleville. And yeah, as Ross pulls up, Colin White is the second star of this game for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. He looks like he's been in playing hockey for 20 years. He looks like it's been a rough go for him. But also, it's tough. You look at Belleville, you lose your top point getter in Angus Crookshank, and then Yuri Smakale was starting to round out into form for them too. So not they don't have all their top guns, I guess, is an excuse I'm trying to give them here, Ross.
Well, the Ottawa Senators certainly have something in common with their AHL counterparts. They get dominated on special teams. Look, Belleville goes 1 for 6 on the power play. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, Ottawa did that last night as well. And Wilkes-Barre Scranton goes 3 for 6 on the power play. 3 of their 5 goals in this game came with the man advantage. So there you have it. The lone goal for the Belleville Sens tonight, Max Gannett, his 4th of the season, assisted by Roby Yarventi and Garrett Pilsey. As they mentioned, that was a power play goal. Tyler Clevin, 2 minor penalties in this game, cross-checking and checking to the head. So the K-Train is chugging along there down below and still getting calls like he did with North Dakota. But hey, back to the National Hockey League team. There's lots the Sens have to do coming up on this game Saturday. We'll take a look at what to expect from that game and the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are coming off a shootout win on Thursday night. What are they going to have in store for the Ottawa Senators? We'll get into that next. This is the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Ross, after the road trip the Ottawa Senators just had, you're going to want to check that your car has all the parts it needs to make it all the way home. Passion, drive, and patience, that's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and even level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. You can find that at eBay Motors, because whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time. You get your money back. It's that simple. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. eBay Motors. Check it out, guys.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Shawarma Palace. Make sure you visit Shawarma Palace whenever you're hungry in the city of Ottawa. Shawarma Palace started with 1 store back in 1997 on Rideau Street. And now they've got 7 locations, including Bank and Hunt Club, the Sailor Ross Shopping Center, Orleans, and they're also available on Uber Eats. So you can always get yourself some Shawarma Palace. At Shawarma Palace, they believe in fresh ingredients, they believe in large portion sizes, and they believe in making sure everybody goes home happy. So go over to Shawarma Palace today and get the platter. I love the extra garlic on my potatoes. I love the rice. I love the chicken, the fresh salad. Everything is so delicious. And the beauty too, you open the box and it's like overflowing. It's so sick when you get the Shawarma Palace platter. Or if you're in a rush, grab one to go. Grab a sandwich. You can also get the shawarma poutine and a whole lot more. Abbas is a huge Sens fan. He runs the show at Shawarma Palace. So go eat like a royal today. Go eat at Shawarma. You and I are off on our vacation, but don't worry, Sens fans. We've got you covered all week long. We've got 3 fantastic Sens Central citizens. We've got a best of episode coming for you and an interview with the PWHL Ottawa star player, Emily Clark. So you can stay tuned for all that on our YouTube channel. And also, I want to remind everyone too, that if you missed any interviews throughout the year, or you want to go back and, maybe get some delusion into you, go listen to our preseason hype. We've got lots of great content from this year. We made over 290 videos this year. And if you're, maybe by yourself for a few minutes this holiday season, or you're looking for some company, you can always go check us out on YouTube, Locked On Senators. All right, Pilsy. So it's a game day tomorrow for the Ottawa Senators. They're hosting the Pittsburgh Penguins. Again, I was about to say things can't get any worse, but every time I say that, they seem to. The Senators need a win to get back to 500 at home. They're 8-9. And again, at home, I get it. They have 2 wins in Europe. I get it. But right now, they are 11-17-0. They're 11-17-0, Pilsy. Games at hand are done. They have as many losses as the team ahead of them, and they've played 6 less games. Like, that's where they're at right now. It's tough right now for the Ottawa Senators, and they're going up against a Pittsburgh Penguins team that's also underperforming. Yeah, they've won 2 in a row, but they're second last in the Metropolitan Division. The Pittsburgh Penguins are 15, 13, and 3 on the season through 31 games. To me, though, this all comes down to what the Senators are doing. The opponent be damned. The Senators have enough of their own problems to worry about.
Yeah, that's definitely fair as a team that's on a 6-game losing streak. The big thing, though, Ross, that makes me nervous about the Pittsburgh Penguins is they've actually been getting pretty good goaltending. And the Ottawa Senators have not been able to kind of close out games. I feel like opposing goalies, whether it's the starter, the backup, or a guy that's been sitting on the bench for 45 minutes, they haven't been able to beat goalies late. And Tristan Jarry and Nedeljkovic have been having good seasons. So I feel like they've been able to make this difficult season for the Pittsburgh Penguins not as tough as it may have looked otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, hey, their goalie's even helping them score goals.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Tristan Jarry has a goal this year for Pittsburgh. But no, all jokes aside, Kate, we do have a morning skate on Saturday at 10:30 on Saturday morning. But no practice tomorrow. And before all the hardos go out there and say, oh, what the heck? They're not practicing. They've literally just got back from a 2-week trip. Think about how you feel. Maybe you want to see your wife, your kids, if you're Claude Giroux, or if you're a guy who, just getting back. I do understand that part of it.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be, the coaches won't have the day off. I'll promise you that. They're going to be working on what they need to before that game, but the Senators will be back on the ice Saturday morning. So we're assuming it's going to be the same lineup, Pilsy, as we saw for the Ottawa Senators in their game against the Colorado Avalanche. So with that, I don't think we have to just name off everybody, but I do want to get a locked on player from you.
Yeah, my locked on player is going to be Claude Giroux. Ross, those quotes from Brady Tkachuk, and I'm sure you'll get into them in your spiel about your locked on player, but when your captain is down in the dumps like that, a young guy in Brady, you need a veteran leader to try to help pick up the pieces and try to take some of that load off of Brady Tkachuk and some of that responsibility. That's why a guy like Claude Giroux was brought in here, right? Because this young core had so much responsibility, so much expectation and pressure put on them. The Ottawa Senators needed someone who has been there, who's been a captain for a long time, Claude Giroux, and knows how to deal with that and can impart some of that wisdom and experience onto some of the younger guys. So Claude Giroux, I want him to have a good game. And Ross, this guy knows about playing up against the Pittsburgh Penguins. In 65 games in his career up against the Pens, he has 69 points, so more than a point per game. Hopefully we can get some of that magic with some home cooking at the CTC up against Erik Karlsson and the Pittsburgh Penguins.
So I want to just say the Sens Central's locked on players and the citizens as well. We just picked for all three. It's the captains. Like, let's be honest. When your team is in a funk, you need your captains to come and play. And Thomas Chabot obviously isn't available, so Tim Stützle is going to be the Citizens locked on player. No goals in his last 8 games. Like, this guy, it just has not gone in for him. And you can say at different times that maybe the shooting wasn't there, whatever, but he had some grade A opportunities against Colorado. So that means one of two things. And sorry, it's 6 straight games right now without a goal. He has one game. He had a 1 goal against Detroit as well. But before that, you have to go all the way back to November 24th. So he has, oh my goodness, dude. He has 1 goal in his last 12 games.
Yeah.
Like, this guy scored 39 goals last year.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, that to me, Timmy's got to take the bull by the horns here and be the player that's making 8.35, right? I get it. It's the first year of his deal. I get it. He's going to be a good player. We've seen it before. He's trying to do too much. He needs to come. He needs to have a statement game tonight. So for me, Tim Stützle's statement game on tap for sure. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then my locked on player is Brady Tkachuk. So hard on himself, calling himself, the leader of this team who's letting his team down. His 1 goal, 1 assist his last 8 games. That's not going to cut it. Remember the joke? It was like, oh, if he scores once, he'll score twice. Well, he finally scored once in a game, and it was the third goal in a 6-3 loss with a minute left. It was a nothing burger. Brady Tkachuk, what I appreciate is that the last couple of games, he hasn't been trying to pick fights when the team's down, and he hasn't been sulking. He has been a guy who I think is going to take this really hard. I mentioned in the postcast, I want him and Daniel Alfredson to have conversations on the plane together. I think that he can be the perfect teacher for him in this moment. And we have to understand that this guy's 24 years old and all he wants to do is to win. And he hasn't had that yet, and frustration can sink in.
Big time.
But what better way to go into the holidays before a game against the Leafs, before another conference game against the Devils, divisional game against the Sabres before the New Year break, not New Year break, but New Year's Eve. He needs a big game tomorrow night against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So Brady Tkachuk's my locked on player.
Yeah, Ross, this is a empty the tank game, right? You get this holiday break. You're on a 6-game losing streak. You're up against a team that, you know, the Penguins and Senators have been rivals for quite a long time here, even though they're not in the same division or like geographically connected or anything like that. But you got to give it everything you got here. I mean, this team has nothing to lose at this point. They're 1 point away from dead last in the league. Like you got to really put the pedal to the metal here and have a full effort.
You have to, and especially you look at it Friday night, tonight, like Chicago's playing Montreal. So either the Habs who are supposed to be rebuilding, they're going to move even further ahead of you, or the Hawks are going to move ahead of you, and you're literally going to be 31st in the league in points. Like that's where the Senators are at as a scoreboard watching team tonight. And it is just like, it's pathetic. Like, I think that's probably the easiest way to put it. This team has been pathetic this year as a whole. And to give us the hope, that opening weekend, Pilsy, we had such a blast. 2 wins, dominant performances. They beat Tampa, 2 goals from Brady. He was buzzing. That photo I just used, if you're watching on YouTube, is from that game. Like, there was so much hope, and it's just been taken away. And this is what we get. We get to pull up a lineup that has Erik Karlsson, the most talented player in Senators history, on raw talent alone, wearing the Pittsburgh Penguins jersey tomorrow night at the Canadian Tire Center. That's what we're at right now. The lineup's expected to be Sidney Crosby between Jake Gensel and Rickard Rakell. Evgeny Malkin between Riley Smith, and this Puustinen kid is actually putting up a ton of numbers, so watch out for him. Number 48. You got Lars Eller between Radim Zahorna and Drew O'Connor, and then Noel Acciari between Jansen Harkins and Jeff Carter. On the back end, you got Pettersson with Letang. You got Graves and Karlsson, and you got Ludwig with Chad Ruhwedel. In goal, we expect it to be Tristan Jarry. Empty the tank, boys. This is a winnable game. You have to win this game. You can't lose 7 straight going into Christmas. You can't.
Yeah, I would look, Ross. This is tough on all of us, Sens fans. It's tough on us covering this team, finding different ways to talk about how they've lost games. But my God, I couldn't even imagine what that would feel like for this team if they lose this game and you're going 7-game losing streak, coming back to your families like that. I don't want that for the families of these players. Like, they're gonna be miserable to be around with at the holidays. Sheesh.
Yeah. So hopefully they come out and get a win. Give me a lookout player here, Pills.
I mean, obviously, Erik Karlsson is the big one you want to look out for here, but I'm gonna go in a different direction and someone less obvious, Ross.
What, Sidney Crosby?
Sidney Crosby, 87. I mean, look, it's impossible to avoid this guy, especially when he's up.
You actually doing it?
Yeah, that's actually where I'm going. That was part of the bit. You got it. You got it. Sidney Crosby, Sid the Kid, heard of him. But he's having an amazing year. And I think that's kind of...
he kills Ottawa, too.
It's what he does, Ross. It's what he does. He's got 34 points in 31 games, 19 goals to lead the Pittsburgh Penguins.
He has 19 goals?
19 goals.
He has 19 goals in his career against Ottawa, too.
Oh, great. Yeah, and that's a nice line with Rickard Rakell and Jake Gensel. Like, Jake Gensel leads the team in points. So that's a 1-2 punch that you really got to look out for there, 87-59.
Yeah, Sidney Crosby, 56 points in 47 regular season games against Ottawa.
Oh, no.
way more in the
I was
playoffs
going to
against
say
Ottawa.
the playoffs numbers must be brutal.
Way more. Now, Erik Karlsson, meanwhile, and I'm about to jinx it, so apologies in advance, has never scored a goal against Ottawa. Never scored a goal against Ottawa. He scored a goal against every other team except for Seattle and Ottawa. He has 5 assists and is -5 in 8 games against Ottawa. But obviously, it's always going to be special because for me, number 65 should be up in the rafters one day. And I know it might be a hot take, whatever. 2-time Norris Trophy winner. Most talented player in Sens history. Say what you want about it, but it sucks seeing a guy like that coming in here.
It's brutal.
Wearing another jersey. Billsy, give me some final thoughts on today's show. It's been a long day for you and I as we're recording at midnight. I think we did a good job of saying yesterday, though, because this is a Friday podcast. I mean, it is 1:42 a.m. local time in Ottawa. This is going to be our last live show until January 2nd. This is going to be pre-recorded, but great content. So we've been grinding away at that over the last couple of days because we want it to be good. But what a year, dude. What a year. It's been a lot of ups and downs. And again, we keep saying the future's bright, but eventually it has to be, no?
It can't get much darker, can it? I mean, let's toss out all the cliches. It's always darkest before the dawn. Every dog has their day. I was hoping to have a couple more there. Two will do for now. Final thoughts for me here, Ross, is it's hard going through this as a Senators fan, but my kind of thing that I'm holding on to, not games in hand, that we've been through, the games in hand era is over.
We Kevin with the chili, the games in hand from the office.
We do need to give this team a little bit of time to adjust to how drastic, I assume, the changes from going to DJ Smith to Jacques Martin will be. It might not look pretty, the growing pains happening here, but I mean, Ross, I have no choice but to believe it's going to get better under the new bench boss and the new systems here. So that is what I will choose to believe coming for the new year here. Hopefully we can get some Christmas magic and a win up against the Penguins, and then we can roll that into some momentum before this year is over.
Well, Merry Christmas to you, Pillsy. Merry Christmas to all the citizens out here who have been watching this show religiously, whether you come by for one episode here or there, or if you grind with us day in and day out. We appreciate you. The numbers are off the charts. The engagement, everything on Twitter at Sens Central and on YouTube and in the audio downloads. We see you. We appreciate you, and we hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll talk to you, though, before that with all of our citizens. For today, though, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.